The bar was calm that night, low music humming in the background, soft lights reflecting off polished glasses and quiet conversations filling the room. Steven Seagal sat at a corner table with his wife, enjoying a rare moment of peace away from the spotlight. He was dressed simply relaxed, blending in like any ordinary customer. Nothing about the night suggested trouble was coming. Across the bar, a group of bikers laughed loudly, their presence impossible to ignore. Leather jackets, heavy boots, and the smell of alcohol followed them wherever they went. One biker in particular stood out, the loudest, most arrogant of the group. His laughter echoed as his eyes began drifting toward Seagal's table. At first, it was subtle, a careless stare, a smirk. Then came a whispered comment to his friends. They laughed. Steven's wife noticed it immediately. She shifted uncomfortably but said nothing, hoping it would pass. It didn't. The bikers' comments grew louder. Disrespectful remarks masked as jokes aimed directly at her. A few people at the bar went silent, sensing the tension. Others glanced over, uncomfortable but unsure whether to step in. Steven remained seated, calm and still, his expression unreadable. The biker mistook that calm for weakness. He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying the attention, throwing another mocking comment across the room. This time, it was unmistakably cruel. Steven's wife lowered her eyes, embarrassed and upset. The atmosphere in the bar shifted instantly, from relaxed to tense. Steven slowly raised his head. He didn't shout. He didn't react aggressively. Instead, he observed, watching the biker carefully, measuring the situation. Years of discipline showed in his posture. Every movement was controlled, deliberate. The biker laughed again, completely unaware of who he was provoking. What he didn't realize was this. The man sitting quietly in front of him wasn't just another customer. He wasn't someone who needed to prove anything. And he certainly wasn't someone who tolerated disrespect, especially toward his family. The bar had grown quiet now. Conversation stopped. Eyes turned toward the two tables. And in that moment, everyone sensed it. This night was about to change. What happened next would leave the entire bar in shock. The biker's smirk widened as he noticed the unease he was creating. What began as subtle, mocking comments toward Steven Seagal's wife quickly escalated into loud, pointed insults. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and let his words fly, confident that no one in the bar would challenge him. Seagal's wife shifted in her seat, glancing at her husband with a quiet plea in her eyes. She could feel the tension building, every insult hitting harder than the last. The biker's laughter grew louder, echoing off the walls. Some patrons nervously looked away, while others fumbled for their phones, instinctively recording the confrontation. There was an invisible line in the air, and the biker had crossed it. Yet Seagal didn't react. Not a word. Not a flicker of anger. His calm presence alone seemed to ripple through the room, making those nearby hold their breath. He watched the biker with quiet intensity, his posture relaxed, his eyes steady, his body language saying one thing: I see you, and I'm not intimidated. The biker, of course, misread it. In his mind, silence meant submission. He leaned closer, speaking loudly enough for the entire bar to hear. Hey lady, maybe you should sit somewhere else. This is my space. His friends laughed, egging him on, thinking this was some harmless joke. But the bar's energy was changing. Patrons stopped chatting, cups paused midair, and even the bartender, polishing a glass, paused to watch. Something about this wasn't right. The biker was poking a lion, and he didn't even know it. Seagal's wife shifted uneasily and whispered, Steven, just ignore him. Don't give him the satisfaction. She knew her husband could handle the situation with a single glance, yet she also felt the weight of the growing tension. Meanwhile, the biker's aggression continued. He mimicked her voice in a mocking tone, leaned across the table, and laughed at his own audacity. People began filming on their phones, whispering to one another. Who is that? And isn't that? But the biker remained unaware, lost in his own arrogance. Finally, Seagal broke the silence, not with aggression but with calm authority. He shifted slightly, letting his presence alone speak volumes. Every eye in the bar was on him now. The biker noticed, and for a fleeting second, he felt a pang of unease, but dismissed it, thinking it was just the fear of confrontation. If you're watching this right now, comment below which country and city you're watching from. Seagal didn't raise his voice, but the atmosphere was electric. The calm before the storm hung in the air like a charged wire. The biker, thinking he still had control, took another step closer, gesturing mockingly. But with every step, the space between him and Seagal felt heavier, almost suffocating, as if the room itself was watching. Waiting. Some patrons began whispering to each other. He's not reacting. Why isn't he reacting? Others pointed their cameras subtly, capturing every mocking gesture, knowing something monumental was unfolding. It wasn't just about disrespect, it was about pride, arrogance, and the natural order of things about to be corrected. Seagal's wife shifted again, her hand brushing against her husband's. "Steven, please," she murmured. But Seagal's eyes were locked on the biker now, steady, unyielding. His silence was louder than any insult the biker had thrown. It was a warning, calm but unmistakable. Push too far, and you'll regret it. The biker, laughing, waved off the tension, but the crowd's attention had turned fully toward him. Whispers spread through the room. "Who is that guy? He's so calm, like he's untouchable." Little did they know that the man sitting before them was not just a celebrity. They were witnessing discipline, mastery, and decades of experience condensed into a single calm gaze. Time seemed to slow. Every insult, every laugh, every mocking gesture from the biker felt amplified in the charged silence of the bar. The patrons leaned forward, some recording, some just watching, anticipating the moment something would finally give. And then the first cracks in the biker's arrogance began to appear. A subtle shift in his posture, a slight hesitation in his grin. He was still loud, still mocking, but there was a flicker of awareness, a tiny seed of doubt. The crowd noticed it too, murmuring under their breath, sensing that the night was no longer about entertainment. It was about accountability. The tension had reached its peak, phones were recording, eyes were watching, hearts were racing, and at the center of it all, Steven Seagal remained calm, composed, ready to act not with anger, but with precision. No one in the bar would ever forget the night the biker chose to disrespect the wrong person. What happens next would leave the entire bar in shock. The biker's confidence had grown with each passing moment. To him, the silence from Steven Seagal and the whispers from the crowd were nothing but proof that he was winning. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, a smirk plastered across his face. "Come on, lady. You really gonna sit there all quiet? You should have picked a smarter spot," he jeered, his voice cutting through the bar. Seagal's wife tightened her grip on her glass, her knuckles turning white. She leaned slightly toward her husband, whispering, "Steven, maybe we should just leave. It's not worth it." Her voice was calm, but the tremor in her tone betrayed her unease. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. The biker's behavior was no longer just disrespect. It was threatening, loud, and public. Seagal didn't respond immediately. Instead, he leaned back slightly in his chair, his eyes locked on the biker. Every muscle in his body radiated control and discipline. There was no fear, no anger, just unwavering focus. His calm presence alone seemed to ripple through the bar, making people stop mid-sip, mid-conversation, mid-action. Patrons who were recording on their phones paused, captivated. Even the bartender, busy wiping down a counter, stopped to watch the unfolding scene. The biker misread it completely. Silence, he thought, meant weakness. Smugly, he leaned closer to Seagal's wife, pointing a finger mockingly. "Maybe you need someone to teach you a lesson, huh?" The laughter that followed from his friends was loud, cruel, and overconfident. The bar had grown uncomfortably quiet. A few patrons whispered, "Who is that guy? Something about him isn't right." Others kept recording, sensing a confrontation that was about to explode. Seagal finally spoke, but not loudly, not aggressively, just enough for the biker, and everyone else to hear. "You don't get to treat people this way. Not her, not anyone. Show some respect." His voice was calm, low, and steady, but it carried an authority that instantly drew all attention. The biker laughed, dismissing it. "Ha! What are you gonna do, scare me?" At that moment, tension in the room reached its peak. Seagal's calm stare seemed to intensify, his eyes never leaving the biker. He didn't raise a fist, didn't lean forward, didn't show aggression. But there was a silent warning in every line of his posture. One wrong move, and this night would end very differently than the biker expected. If you were in Seagal's shoes, would you stay calm or step in immediately? Comment below. The biker smirked, thinking he was untouchable. But a few things were starting to change. His friends, once laughing loudly, now exchanged uneasy glances. A subtle tension had crept into their group. Some patrons whispered to each other, "He's picking the wrong person." "Can't you feel it?" Seagal's wife continued to watch nervously. She could see the discipline in her husband, the years of experience that told him exactly when and how to act. She wanted him to step back, to ignore the biker. But deep down, she also trusted that he would handle it perfectly. The biker, oblivious to the growing anticipation, threw one more taunt. "Why don't you say something, tough guy, or are you scared?" His laughter was louder this time, more mocking, more desperate to provoke a reaction. Then something subtle happened. Patrons who had been recording quietly began to whisper, leaning forward. Some with phones held up, waiting for the inevitable. The tension was palpable. Every single person in the bar was watching, caught in the silent battle between arrogance and discipline. Seagal shifted slightly, his eyes narrowing. Not in anger, but in calculation. He didn't move toward the biker, but the aura of authority he exuded made it clear. The tables were about to turn. The biker still thought he was in control, still thought he was untouchable. But that confidence was starting to crack. A hushed murmur spread through the crowd. "He's not reacting, but something tells me he's going to." In that moment, the bar seemed suspended in time. Every laugh, every insult, every nervous glance was amplified. The biker's arrogance was growing thin, replaced by an unspoken awareness that he may have finally misjudged the wrong person. And then, the first seeds of doubt appeared in the biker's mind. A subtle hesitation in his smile. A slight pause in his laughter. He looked around, noticing the crowd's attention on him. Phones were recording. Eyes were fixed on him. He began to feel the weight of the situation. He was no longer just mocking someone. He was being watched, analyzed, and silently judged. Steven Seagal remained calm, composed, and silent. But the entire bar knew something was about to happen. The tension was unbearable, the anticipation electric, and in that silence, the biker was unknowingly standing on the edge of defeat. What happens next will shock everyone in the bar. The bar was electric with tension. Every patron, every bartender, every person in the vicinity felt the weight of the moment. The biker, still grinning arrogantly, leaned back in his chair, convinced he was still in control. He had mocked, insulted, and humiliated openly, thinking the man beside him, Steven Seagal, would stay silent forever. Seagal's wife was growing increasingly uneasy. Her hand brushed against his arm, a quiet reminder that the situation was dangerous. "Steven, please, just let it go," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. But Seagal didn't flinch. He kept his calm composure, his eyes tracking every movement of the biker. Every smirk, every mocking gesture, every misplaced laugh was catalogued in his mind. He was patient, calculating, waiting for the perfect moment. The biker, oblivious, continued his taunts. "You think staying quiet is going to help? Pathetic." His friends cackled, encouraging him to push further. A few patrons were holding their breath, sensing something extraordinary was about to unfold. Cameras' phones were raised everywhere, recording the tense confrontation, capturing every subtle movement. And then, it happened. A young bystander at the end of the bar squinted at Seagal and gasped softly, almost to himself. "Wait, isn't that?" He nudged his friend, whispering, "That's Steven Seagal, the action star. The martial arts legend." The words spread like wildfire. Whispers started circulating through the bar. "That's Steven Seagal? The guy from all those action movies, the martial arts master." People began nudging each other, pulling out their phones, zooming in to capture the man they'd once only seen on the big screen. The biker, completely unaware, continued laughing, mocking, and leaning closer to Seagal's wife. He had no idea that his target was a world-renowned martial arts legend, a man whose calm exterior hid decades of discipline and unmatched combat skill. The tension in the bar shifted subtly. Patrons who were once hesitant now whispered to one another, pointing discreetly. "Do you see his eyes? That's not just calm. That's someone who can take control of any situation." Some tried to capture videos from different angles, making sure to record the moment before the biker noticed. Seagal remained seated, still calm, still composed, not revealing the full depth of his presence. He didn't need to. The biker's arrogance was now teetering on the edge of disaster, even if he didn't realize it yet. The crowd's energy had shifted, a quiet buzz of anticipation hung in the air, like the calm before a storm. The biker paused for a split second, feeling a tiny prick of unease. "Why is everyone staring?" he muttered to his friends. "It's just a guy sitting there." But the glances, the whispers, the phones, all suggested otherwise. People were no longer watching him. They were watching Seagal. Seagal's wife looked around nervously, catching sight of the recognition spreading. "They know who he is," she murmured. "Just be careful." The biker, still unaware, attempted one last show of dominance. He leaned forward, raising his voice. "You think silence makes you tough, pathetic?" His friends laughed, but their laughter was less confident now. The subtle tension in the air made them uneasy. The bar had transformed. It was no longer a place of quiet drinks. It was now a theater of suspense, every eye fixed on the silent, composed man in the corner. Patrons whispered, cameras rolled, and the biker's confidence slowly began to crumble. Then came the first true acknowledgement. Someone approached the biker quietly and whispered, "Do you even know who you're messing with?" The biker's smirk faltered slightly, a hint of doubt flickering across his face. He looked around, realizing the crowd's attention had shifted entirely towards Seagal. Phones were raised, whispers amplified, eyes wide with anticipation. Seagal's calm stare never wavered. He didn't need to speak, didn't need to move. Yet every person in the bar now knew one undeniable truth. The biker had grossly underestimated the wrong man. In that suspended moment, the biker was still arrogant, still unaware, but the first cracks in his confidence were visible. He laughed nervously, unsure how to respond to the energy shifting around him. Patrons were on edge, waiting for the inevitable. Cameras were rolling from every angle, capturing every twitch, every hesitation. The realization had begun, and soon it would escalate further. The biker had mocked, insulted, and humiliated. But the man before him, the man he had chosen to provoke, was no ordinary target. Steven Seagal was composed, calm, and patient, but one wrong move from the biker could turn everything around in an instant. The first recognition was just the beginning. The tension in the bar was now unbearable. Every eye was on the corner table where Steven Seagal sat calm and composed, while the biker continued to taunt, unaware of the recognition spreading through the crowd. The biker's arrogance had started to falter, his confidence cracking ever so slightly as whispers grew louder and phones lifted higher, capturing every movement. The biker leaned forward again, smirking, trying to reclaim dominance. "Hey, why don't you say something? Tough guy, or are you too scared?" His voice was loud, mocking, and desperate to provoke a reaction. The laughter of his friends echoed, though it lacked the earlier confidence. A few patrons had begun shaking their heads, sensing the biker was about to face a lesson he couldn't anticipate. Seagal didn't respond immediately. He remained seated, motionless, his posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp, like a predator observing its prey. His silence, once seen as weakness, now felt heavier than any words. Every muscle in his body exuded discipline, control, and calm authority. The crowd felt it. The biker felt it. For the first time, the biker sensed something powerful in the man he had chosen to mock, but he didn't fully understand it yet. Then Seagal spoke. His voice was calm, low, and deliberate, cutting through the noise like a knife. "You don't get to treat anyone this way, not her, not anyone, and especially not someone who's simply enjoying their evening in peace." The bar went silent. Every laugh, every whisper, every movement froze in place. The words weren't loud or threatening yet. They carried the weight of authority and control. The biker's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of doubt. For the first time, he noticed the unwavering focus in Seagal's eyes, the kind that told you action would follow if necessary. "You think mocking someone makes you stronger?" Seagal continued, his tone calm but commanding. "You think disrespect proves dominance. True strength, he said, slowly standing up, is measured by restraint, respect, and control, not arrogance and aggression. A hush fell over the bar. Patrons leaned forward, phones capturing every second. Some murmured to each other, astonished at the sudden shift in energy. The bikers' friends, once bold and mocking, now exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the situation was no longer entertaining. It was about to become a reckoning. The biker tried to laugh it off, nervously attempting to regain control. "Ha, what are you gonna do? Hit me?" His words sounded small, uncertain. There was a tremor in his voice that hadn't been there before. Seagal's presence alone was enough. He didn't rush. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. His slow, deliberate movements, his controlled gaze, and the calm authority in his voice were enough to shift the balance entirely. The biker's arrogance was unraveling, and the crowd sensed it. Seagal's wife watched anxiously, but she also felt pride. She knew every second that passed in silence was a lesson being taught, one the biker would never forget. Patrons whispered among themselves, "He's not even raising his voice, and yet, it's like he's commanding the room." The biker took a step back, realizing too late that his behavior had consequences. Sweat appeared on his brow, his laughter faded, replaced by a nervous, forced smile. He glanced at the crowd, noticing their eyes on him, recording everything, judging every move. Panic began to creep in, though he tried to hide it. Seagal's voice carried again, calm and steady, but this time sharper. "Respect is earned, not demanded. And humility isn't weakness. It's strength. Something you clearly don't understand." At that moment, the bar's energy shifted completely. Phones raised, whispers grew louder, and the biker's smirk disappeared entirely. The crowd now fully understood the man they had underestimated, whose wife he had mocked, was not only calm but formidable. Arrogance met mastery, and mastery won without a single aggressive strike. The biker froze, realizing he had misjudged the wrong person. The laughter of his friends had stopped. Murmurs of recognition and awe replaced the mocking noise from moments ago. The tension in the room was palpable. Every patron felt the unspoken lesson in the air. Arrogance can be humbled, and respect commands power far greater than intimidation. Seagal's eyes never left the biker. One last statement, calm and unwavering, cemented the moment. Learn this well. Respect comes first. Everything else comes later. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came. The reality of his actions had sunk in fully, and the crowd could see it. He had lost, not with violence, but with humility and undeniable authority wielded perfectly by Seagal. In that instant, the balance of power had shifted completely. The biker had thought he was in control, but now, the entire bar knew the truth. Arrogance meets its match in discipline, patience, and respect. And the lesson had been delivered, loudly, silently, and completely unforgettable. The next moments would seal the biker's defeat entirely. The bar was electric. Every eye was on the corner table where the biker now stood frozen, the arrogance that had carried him through the evening completely crumbling. For the first time, he realized that his behavior, mocking Steven Seagal's wife, challenging him openly, had consequences he couldn't control. The crowd around them sensed it too, leaning forward, whispering, and capturing every moment on their phones. The biker's friends, who had egged him on, exchanged uneasy glances. The laughter that had filled the room only moments ago had vanished, replaced by silence and disbelief. For them, the fun had evaporated. The tables had turned, and it was happening faster than anyone could have predicted. Seagal remained calm, seated with his wife beside him. His posture was relaxed, yet every movement radiated authority. He hadn't raised his voice, hadn't thrown a punch, hadn't even made an overt move. But the energy around him made it clear he was fully in control. Then came the final acknowledgement. A fellow officer, who had arrived unnoticed earlier, leaned in toward the biker. "Do you even know who you've been mocking?" he asked quietly. The words hit like a cold wave. The biker froze, sweat forming at his brow, and his eyes widened as recognition slowly dawned. The realization was instant and crushing. The man he had been mocking, someone he assumed would remain silent and weak, was none other than Steven Seagal, martial arts master, action legend, and a man whose reputation alone carried authority and respect. The bar erupted into whispers, gasps, and muted cheers. Patrons who had been recording on their phones leaned forward, capturing the moment the biker's confidence finally shattered. Did he really just? One whispered. He had no idea, another muttered. Seagal didn't gloat. He didn't need to. His calm presence spoke louder than any words or show of strength ever could. The biker, on the other hand, tried to recover his composure, but it was too late. Every gesture, every smirk, every attempt at bravado now seemed pitiful and out of place. The energy had shifted completely. The crowd was on Seagal's side. Do you think the biker expected this outcome? Type yes or no in the comments. Seagal's wife exhaled softly, relief washing over her face. She had watched the biker's arrogance escalate, seen the tension rise, and now felt the shift in control. Her hand rested lightly on her husband's arm, a silent acknowledgement of the calm authority that had diffused a dangerous situation without violence. The biker, humiliated and exposed, realized that he had underestimated every element of the situation. His mockery, his arrogance, and his attempt to intimidate had all backfired spectacularly. The patrons watched as he slumped in his seat, eyes darting nervously to the cameras capturing his humiliation. Seagal finally spoke again, his voice steady, low, and calm. Respect is earned, not demanded. Humility is strength, and arrogance is its own downfall. Every word landed with precision, echoing through the bar and imprinting itself in the minds of everyone present. The biker could only nod weakly, mumbling incoherently, realizing the lesson he had just been taught. The room buzzed with murmurs of approval and admiration. Phones were raised everywhere, capturing every reaction, every flicker of emotion on the biker's face. Security arrived quietly, guiding the biker out of the bar without incident. He had been defeated, not with violence, but with patience, discipline, and composure. The crowd followed the scene with their eyes, some whispering, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others recording every second. Have you ever seen someone get humbled like this? Share your story in the comments. Seagal returned to his seat, sitting beside his wife as if nothing had happened. The bar slowly returned to normal, though the energy lingered, a mix of awe, excitement, and respect. Patrons continued to whisper, share videos, and speculate about what had just unfolded. In those moments, it was clear to everyone watching. The arrogant biker had chosen the wrong target. He had mocked, laughed, and assumed dominance. But true authority, grounded in respect and discipline, had overturned the situation entirely. The story of that night would not stay confined to the bar. Videos taken by patrons began circulating online, sharing the lesson widely. Arrogance and disrespect can only take someone so far, and true composure and mastery speak louder than aggression ever could. And the biker? He had learned the hardest lesson of all. The moment had gone viral even before anyone left the bar, and the final act was yet to be fully revealed. By the next morning, videos from the bar had already started circulating online. Patrons' recordings captured every tense moment. The biker's arrogant taunts, Steven Seagal's calm composure, the crowd leaning forward in anticipation, and finally, the biker's complete humiliation. Within hours, millions of people had seen the footage, sharing it across social media platforms with captions praising Seagal's discipline, patience, and integrity. Absolute legend, one comment read. He didn't even touch him, and yet he won, said another. Respect over arrogance every time, said a third. The story resonated globally. People everywhere connected with the message. Arrogance and aggression are fleeting, but calmness, discipline, and respect command true authority. Seagal's handling of the situation had not only defended his wife's dignity, but also delivered a powerful lesson to anyone watching. Meanwhile, the biker became a trending topic, but not for the reasons he had imagined. Humiliated and exposed, his failed attempt at intimidation went viral. People criticized him online while videos highlighted his mistakes, his arrogance, and the moment he realized he had underestimated the wrong person. Memes, reaction videos, and commentary flooded social media platforms, making it clear that the biker's defeat had become a worldwide spectacle. Seagal, however, didn't gloat. He returned to his life with his wife quietly, letting the lesson speak for itself. He had taught without violence, humiliated without aggression, and proved that true strength is measured by composure, restraint, and respect. If you believe no one should ever be judged by arrogance or appearance, Type respect in the comments. The bar itself became a talking point. Patrons who had witnessed the event firsthand shared their stories online, describing the moment. By moment suspense, the biker's escalating arrogance, and Seagal's commanding calm, clips from multiple angles made their way to millions of viewers. Many amazed at how the confrontation had been handled. The story inspired discussions about humility, authority, and standing up against disrespect without resorting to violence. News outlets and social media influencers picked up the story. The headlines read, "Steven Seagal silences arrogant biker without throwing a punch." Bar confrontation goes viral. Martial arts legend teaches lesson in respect. Even months later, the clips were still being shared. People replayed them to show friends, families, and colleagues the power of calm authority over arrogance. The incident became a reference point for teaching respect, patience, and integrity in tense situations. For the biker, the lesson was unforgettable. His arrogance had led to public humiliation, a viral moment he would not live down. But for everyone else, Seagal's composed, measured approach became the real highlight. A masterclass in discipline, dignity, and handling disrespect without losing control. Seagal's wife looked at him quietly after the bar had emptied. "You made a point," she said softly, smiling. Seagal simply nodded, calm as ever. The point had been made and the lesson had been learned. Not just by the biker, but by everyone watching. If you believe respect should always come before arrogance, type respect in the comments and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this. Share this video to remind others that true strength comes from calmness, discipline, and integrity. The story of that night: arrogance challenged, humility victorious, and dignity preserved, would continue to inspire countless viewers around the world.